Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kat and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag, or just talking about my reading stats so far this year, a few of my favourite books, a few of the disappointing ones, and which ones I'm looking forward to next. So if you want to hear all my thoughts about that, keep watching this video. Okay, so far this year I've read 29 books. Well, like, I've finished 29 books. I've definitely read a lot more than that. I set my reading goal this year as 50 books just because I think I hit 40 something books last year, so obviously I wanted to push myself to read a little bit more. I'm definitely thinking that I'm going to surpass 50 books, and considering I've had some really like bad moments this year and therefore bad reading months, I'm still 4 books ahead of schedule, so I'm doing just fine. And yeah, I'm really excited for the summer of reading because I've got so many anticipated books that I want to get around to. Apparently so far in most of the books that I've read, the main moods are dark and emotional, followed by tense and mysterious, which is actually kind of a surprise to me. I guess I have read some thrillers and horrors, but yeah, I would have thought that it would be a lot fluffier considering like my mood has been to read like a lot of romances and stuff like that. It also says that my most read genre is romance, so that's not a surprise at all. Apparently I've read 9 romances this year out of the 29 books that I've read in total, but they must just be dark romances. I think that's what it is. I've read 72% physical books, 17% audio, and 10% ebooks. And my average rating for this year so far has been 4.02 stars. So really good. Most of the ratings have been 4 stars, followed by 5 stars and a couple of the rest. So yeah, those are all the stats that I'm going to be talking about in this video. And let's get on to the questions. So the first question is obviously, what is my favourite book that I've read so far in 2022? And this is a very tricky one because I feel like I haven't found or read my favourite book of the year so far. But if I'm going to pick one that is going to definitely go on to my favourites list, I would have to pick Gallant by V. Schwab. A lot of people criticise this for not having like much going on, but I just felt like I had such a different reading experience to those people. I really love the atmosphere in this one. I felt like it was a great mix between Coraline and Crimson Peak. I feel like it was a Coraline for older readers, but not as gruesome as Crimson Peak is. But yeah, I love both of those stories, so of course it was meant to be that I would love this as well. Yeah, I just loved it. Like 5 stars from me. The next question is favourite sequel, and I haven't honestly read that many sequels this year, and that's probably because I start series and I never carry them on. But one series that I've been loving that I have then gone on to the next book is the Folk of the Air trilogy. So my favourite sequel that I've read so far this year has to be The Wicked King by Holly Black, which I literally finished today. I just enjoyed being with these characters in this world again, even if it isn't objectively the best book ever. And I also fell in love just a little bit more with Carden, which brings me on to the next question actually. So in some versions of this tag, there is a question of newest fictional crush. If I was to include that in this video, I'd probably say that Carden's a good contender, just because of the way Holly Black describes his wardrobe and the fact that he has earrings. Like I love the vibe. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. The next question in this tag is a book that's come out recently that you haven't read yet that you want to. I think that's the question. And I've got 2 answers for this. So the first one is The Other Black Girl by Zakaya Delilah Harris. It's described as Get Out meets The Devil Wears Prada, and it's a thriller about 2 black women working in a publishing house, and it's supposed to shed light on the lack of diversity in the publishing industry, which is really interesting. I love when thrillers also have social commentary, so that's one book that I definitely want to read soon that's come out recently. The other one is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I haven't read an Emily Henry book before, but this one got voted for my Patreon buddy read for July, so I'm going to be reading this month, and I'm really excited because this is the Emily Henry that I've heard the best things about, and so yeah, of course I have to read it. So many of my friends have liked this. Apparently it's a good time. So I would have to say that The Liminal Zone by Junji Ito is my most anticipated release for the next half of the year. I don't really keep up to date with new releases that far in advance. Usually I find out about new releases from work a month or 2 before they come out, but because Junji Ito is one of my favourite authors, I found out about this book and I pre-ordered it straight away. I just feel like he's an instant buy for me now. I'm gonna buy every single new release that he comes out with, while obviously making my way through his backlist as well. I'm just having a grand old time with Mr. Ito. So for biggest disappointment of 2022, I've actually got 3, which just shows how my reading year has gone so far. And yeah, I just couldn't choose between them because they were all really sucky and disappointing. The first one is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix, which I listened to on Audible. I was convinced that this one was going to be my favorite of his just because of the unique format, the fact that it's based on a fictional IKEA with zombies. Like, it just sounds like the perfect recipe for horror. But it just ended up going somewhere that I really didn't like. It wasn't fun, which it should have been. And it was just gross. Really disappointing considering I thought I would like that one most. To be honest with you, I just think Grady Hendrix isn't really for me, unfortunately. I love the premises of a lot of his books, but the execution just isn't it for me. Okay, this one's really freaking crusty and dusty. Oh no. Can you hear that rain? Can you hear this rain? Like, is this the vibe? I don't know, maybe. Because we're talking about disappointing books. So the next disappointing book is Shiver by Ali Reynolds. This is a thriller set in the Alps, I believe. And this was the only book out of these 3 that I couldn't bring myself to finish. The writing was like something out of an episodes game. I don't know if you guys know those apps. You get to like make decisions for the player. Really trashy stories, but like really fun. It was kind of like that, but unfortunately the mystery of the thriller and the characters, nothing was compelling enough to make it entertaining, to make it that fun. It was just terrible. I am so disappointed because I saved this for over a year so I could read it on a skiing holiday so I could get all the vibes, and it was honestly just a waste of taking up space in my suitcase. The last book and potentially biggest disappointment was Nothing But Black and Teeth by Cassandra Core. This book. The only way that I got through this book was to hate read it all in one night, and overall it was just so up itself. It was like the author was trying to win the award for most adjectives used in like 100 pages. Like, was this even, how long was this? Yeah, like 110 pages. It was a headache to read. It was just really confusing, even though the plot should have been very straightforward just based on what the synopsis was. Like, the synopsis cleared things up for me more than reading the entire book. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the hype surrounding this book is probably just because it has such a beautiful cover and a really enticing premise. I've not heard any good things about the actual book. Okay, let's take it back to something more positive. So my biggest surprise of this year so far is Watering the Soul by Courtney Papernell. So this was a complete random pick. I just wanted some poetry to read. I wanted to get into poetry, and I just happened to really like the little dude on the cover. I love the illustration, so I gave this one a shot and I ended up loving it. It was my first 5-star book of this year. I've gone on about this one in the past, so I'm not going to bore you, but my favorite thing about it probably is that it's split into these sections of like self-love, so you can kind of just flip to whatever section you want depending on how you're feeling. And yeah, there are really cute illustrations throughout as well. The new favourite author, of course, it had to be Mona Awad, and that is because I read All's Well this year. Reading this kind of just solidified her place as a favourite author of mine. And this was another surprise because all I'd heard about this book before reading it was that it didn't compare to Bunny, and I lowered my expectations and then I was completely blown away. As you can probably tell, I had a ball reading this. Like Bunny, I feel like this is mostly character driven, and I feel like Mona Awad writes characters so well. They are so complex, so interesting, they shock you. I just loved watching everything play out like in these characters' lives in this book. This definitely made me fall even more in love with Mona Awad. And speaking of this book, the next question is perfect because it's newest favourite character. And I would probably give that to Miranda from All's Well. Miranda is certainly a morally grey character. I just love characters like that. I think they're just way more interesting, and I was definitely kept on my toes and kept in the dark a little bit in terms of the decisions that Miranda made and like what she did next in this book. Like, I was constantly in awe by her, like whether I liked it or not. For a book that made me cry, what else is it gonna be other than Ugly Love? My patrons had to witness me having a full-on breakdown on our Patreon live sprints yesterday. I was not prepared for this. I was not expecting to be hit so hard by a romance novel, but this one has some like really sad topics in it, and I would be made of stone if I didn't cry. And the weird thing is that I feel like I would read it again. Ugly Love made me ugly cry. And for a book that made me happy, I absolutely have to go with Yinka, Where Is Your Husband by Lizzie Damilola Blackburn. I read this on my way to work, in my lunch break, and on my way home. It just really brightened my mood every time that I listened to it, and I kind of wish that I had a physical copy, but it's this massive hardcover. I might have to buy it when it comes out in paperback so that I can read it again. Yinka, she was a great contender for new favorite character. Yinka was so much more likable and compelling than so many protagonists I've read in other contemporary fiction, and that's probably the biggest factor in me loving this book so much. So yeah, if you haven't heard of it yet, I definitely recommend like checking it out because it was really good. The most beautiful book that I've bought this year has to be Electra by Jennifer Saint. As soon as I brought that out, it started shining. Like, this is just undisputable. Like, it's really, really gorgeous. I got it from the airport, so it's this really big edition. Like, oh, it looks so good. I feel like it makes me look better just having it next to me, you know? But yeah, it's just the green, it's just the size of the book, it's the foiling. Jennifer Saint definitely like won with her book covers. So for books that I want to get to before the end of the year, I've got 3 that I'll just go through quite quickly. So the first one, obviously because I want to finish the Fog of the Air series, has to be The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. It's actually looks quite short compared to the other 2. I just want to read this really soon. This is also one of my new favorite covers as well. Now that I'm in the fantasy mood, I also want to start the Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang. It's been a long time coming. I feel like so many people have told me to read it. I just haven't been reading fantasy as of late. But yes, trust me, it will be one of my next purchases when I allow myself to buy another book. And lastly, The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. I got recommended this by a follower or subscriber at the beginning of the year, and I'm supposed to be reading it as part of my 12 books in 12 months challenge. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was like trending at the beginning of the year, and I have been like slowly making my way through my list of books recommended by you guys. So that's on the list, and it's definitely one that I really want to prioritize. So I definitely intend to read it very soon. Okay, that brings me to the end of this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts about all of these books and which books I'm excited for. I would love to hear some of your answers to these questions down below. I'm actually really ill right now, so I'm gonna skedaddle. I really hope that you guys are having a great day. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.